Hello and welcome to a new edition of Nile Cruise. We'll be taking you in a cruise of knowledge and entertainment. I'm Abir Mitwali and accompanied me is my dear colleague Sahar Talawi. We are now in the 57th Cairo International Book Fair, which officially opened its doors yesterday, marking a historic moment for our culture landscape. This year, the Cairo International Book Fair celebrates a century of man who wrote with light and directed with the soul of a novelist. Today we honor the centenary of the late visionary Yusuf Shaheen. And to shed more light on this topic, we are delighted to have with us Professor Mariam Wahid. She is a professor of political science and writer. Thank you very much, Dr. Mariam, for joining us
Doctor,
today.
for being on Nile Cruise.
Thank you very much.
Doctor, the Cairo International the book fair opens with a tribute to the great writer to Naguib Mahfouz, and as the director Yusuf Shaheen. As a writer, how do you feel these two joints are celebrated here in the Cairo International Book Fair?
Actually, always the Cairo International Book Fair is a really important festival. You can witness this from the early moments when you first enter the book fair, where you see children, you see older people, you see people from different generations coming and witnessing this really important event. And this year specifically, we're witnessing the celebration of Naguib Mahfouz and Yusuf Shaheen, and specifically related to cinema. I'll talk about cinema because Naguib Mahfouz actually had a lot of works related to political cinema, which was my main concern, since my PhD was about the political discourse of Egyptian cinema. So he has written a lot of novels that were actually portrayed in cinema, like, for example, Palace Walk, his trilogy from Palace Walk and Sugar Street, and Palace of Desire, and also other works, other important works like The Thief and the Dogs. These works actually were portrayed on screen and people loved them. And actually, he besides this, he wrote stories for other movies. So he was participating in writing the stories, not his novels. So he didn't write the script for the novels he wrote that were transformed into movies. But he wrote, like for example, he participated with Yusuf Shaheen in writing some of his movies, like Nasser Salah ad-Din, for example.
Yeah. Dr. Mariam, Shaheen's film required reading between the lines. Did he purposely make this film's complex to challenge the audience intellect?
Actually, I believe that he had a vision, and so it was not about that he wants ambiguity. That was not his main purpose. His main purpose was that he has a vision of cinema. And he was one of, as a famous philosopher, Gilles Deleuze, he's a French philosopher. He wrote about Yusuf Shaheen that he represents the third cinema, the third world cinema. He reflected something related to the relation between his personal life and the political events taking place in the third world in general. So he was trying, when he wrote and directed those famous 4 movies reflecting his personal life, starting with Alexandria Why, then Egyptian Story, Haduta Masriya.
Yeah, this was a very interesting.
Alexandria Again and Again, Iskandariya Kaman Kaman, and Alexandria New York, Iskandariya New York. And I remember Yusuf Shaheen because I saw him once when he was, they were shooting actually Alexandria, New York at the Cairo Opera House.
He was
taking
obsessed with the Alexandria
piano lessons, and I met him. And he was really concerned about art. He was really concerned about the concept of social justice. And I witnessed this also, how he treats all the people working in the movie, the director of photography, the workers, everyone in the location. So that was his political ideas, his thinking, and also his insights. And that it was not about ambiguity. And also I witnessed this when I went to see the archives of Yusuf Shaheen at Mr. International Films at Champollion Street. And I saw, for example, part of The Return of the Prodigal Son. And I even had the chance also to get some of the photos of the movies that actually the photos were taken by the famous photographer Mohamed Bakr, and I saw this, and so actually they worked a lot. They worked a lot on the script. They worked a lot on the direction. So it was not about ambiguity. It was about the idea that they had political insights and also social insights about the community, about the society, about people, what people need.
Yeah, Doctor, also as we know that Shaheen famously brought the several of Mahfouz narratives to the screen. Beyond the plots, how did Shaheen rebellious directing style capture the underlying soul for the great writer?
Nagui Mahfouz specifically,
And
actually,
Yusuf Shaheen.
and Yusuf Shaheen.
Yes.
They captured a lot about the Egyptian identity, and this was clear in all the movies. And for example, I would mention something about Nagui Mahfouz when he was tackling the Egyptian personality in a movie like, for example, New Cairo or القاهرة 30. That was it was never called New Cairo, and then it was the movie we all know it, Cairo 30,
Yes.
about Egyptians actually countering the occupation, the British occupation, and that was clear in a lot of movies, actually, either by Yusuf Shaheen or Nagui Mahfouz, talking about, for example, Alexandria Y. Would shift to Alexandria Y in talking about the Second World War. So
Yeah.
he's talking about Alexandria as a cosmopolitan city during the Second World War, and the Egyptian identity, how it was foreign during this war, and actually how Alexandria was a really cosmopolitan city where people from different countries even lived in Egypt. For example, Greeks, Romanians.
Long before globalization and buzzword, Shaheen was a fixture at Cannes and Venice also. How did he manage to be intensely Egyptian and at the same time universally understood?
That was something that he was keen on since, and that was clear in Alexandria Y movie as well, that the main actor of this movie, the protagonist of the movie, Yahya, has a dream to travel abroad and to study at Hollywood.
Yeah.
And that was actually what Shaheen started with, that he traveled to the US, and actually he built strong connections with France,
Yeah.
and that was through a lot of production that France actually participated in production of a lot of his movies, and that was clear even that he took the big prize at the Cannes Festival, the Golden Prize. So that was something that he could build these connections with building this connection with Francophone, and that he studied at international schools, and so that actually this upbringing helped him a lot when he traveled also and studied abroad to make those films.
Yeah.
Doctor, also moving specifically to the centenary, why does Shaheen's work remain so modern? We feel like that it's done for the audience for today.
Yes, because actually, for example, I will talk about a movie called The Sixth Day. It's talking about a woman, a marginalized woman facing poverty, and she lives in the 40s, and there was a plague at that time, and she faced a lot of challenges, and even Dalida, back to the French connections, so Dalida, everyone was saying that Dalida can't be this Egyptian peasant. So
Yeah.
she lived in Egypt for some time, and she was Egyptian beside being French, but actually he could do this. So he could also do a lot of things that people would say that this is not possible. So that was clear in his movies, and so a movie like that is not talking about also a specific image of a woman in one country even. It's talking about a woman she can be from different countries. So that made his works also international, that he was not concentrating on the particularity of a specific country also. That also made him internationally recognized.
Yeah. Dr. Mariam, with the fair focusing on preservation and digital media this year, how urgent is it we restore and archive Shaheen's filmography for the next 100 years?
Yes, these works have been for a long period of time. I've seen, and this was actually shown in also Cairo International Film Festival, that there's a big attention by the country to restore a lot of the famous works, cinematic works. And this is actually one of the main public policies of the country right now related to art, to preserve our cultural heritage. So a lot of those movies were restored, like for example, Return of the Prodigal Son, and a lot of other movies.
Yeah. Also, Dr. Mariam, as we know that this centenary taking place at the International Book Fair, is there any need for more published documentation or unproduced memories of the works for Yusuf Shaheen, in your point of view?
Excuse me?
Is there any documentation we want to remember here as we are celebrating the centenary for this great director?
There's always, I don't have information right now of what is being documented right now related to, for example, books, or you mean movies?
Yes.
You mean documentary movies?
General,
I really don't know about this, about the new material right now taking place related to documentation of Yusuf Shaheen works. But what I really know that in the office of the International Film, that there are main archives, and they're working well to preserve his works, and also there's special attention by the country to preserve all his works. And also, in addition to that, the French ambassador actually has visited this year, last September. He had visited the International Film's archives also to see the works and to work with their office to restore Yusuf Shaheen's works.
Yeah. Dr. Mariam, if you had to choose one film that summarizes the essence of Yusuf Shaheen for a new generation, which would it be and why?
For me, I like a lot the movie The Land, Al-Ard, because it reflects Egypt so much. It reflects the land, the people who live in the land, and peasants who care for the land, and it's a symbol of Egypt that we all care about. So for me, it's a really important movie.
Yeah.
And related to the personality of Yusuf Shaheen, I feel that Alexandria, why reflects his personality so much. Related to also like a little bit of a fantasy, Return of Prodigal Son also is it's about a fantasy and about the village of Meet Shabura, and this is it was the imagination of Yusuf Shaheen and reflected on screen, and that is something that I'm really interested in my works, because I wrote 2 books on cinema, a book called Image and Meaning, that's the book produced this year.
Yeah.
By Dot Tamhid, and it's about image and meaning, how ideas are reflected in movies. So movies of Yusuf Shaheen, like Return of Prodigal Son, is something that I cared about in my writings. Also, another one, The Sixth Day, which is a chapter in my book as well.
Yeah.
Doctor, also many argue that Shaheen didn't just direct the movies, he authored them. And how did this relationship, the literature, shape his storytelling style, in your point of view?
He was actually a script writer besides being a movie director. Because some movie directors depend on other script writers.
Yeah.
But he was really keen to write this. Even when, for example, a movie called The Choice, he actually wrote it with Naguib Mahfouz, and they had a lot of sessions to write this movie. And this is also a little bit of a fantasy movie in its genre. So he was really keen on script writing and to reflect his ideas, and that's why different philosophers talked about this also, that his personal life was reflected in the movies.
Dr. Mariam, in your book Image and Meaning, you describe cinema as a visual consciousness. How does the camera capture Egypt's political shifts and power struggles in a way that written history after misses?
My book that was published this year actually tackles the intrinsic relation between politics and cinema, and also tackling in some of its chapters on Egyptian cinema and politics in portrayal in Egyptian cinema. It's comprised of different chapters on visual symbols, and also something about social justice in Egyptian cinema, something on youth cinema and the concept of independent films. Also another chapter on The Sixth Day about power relations in the cinematic cadre or the frame, how, for example, when the director uses the different modes of the film, like editing, like using lighting, the image, also the sound, not only the language between the authors or what they say, also the importance of sound effects, the importance of music, because it reflects meaning. So when we see a movie, it's called the seventh art. So because it's comprised of the different modes. It's not like a book, only you read something. It's not like text. It's a composition or a composition mode of different modes, like language, like sound, like image, like editing. And when I tackled, for example, the symbols, I would focus on the visual symbols, like when Yusuf Shaheen, back to Yusuf Shaheen, when he was talking about the sun, the famous sun in the movie of the Return of the Prodigal Son, and also he used the symbol of the sun also in another movie like The Sixth Day, also using symbols like Salah Abu Saif when he was talking about combating the British occupation in his movies like Cairo 30. He wrote that Long Live Egypt. He wrote it on screen, that it's using these symbols also gives the audience the meaning.
Yeah.
So these are all tackled in my book.
Dr. Mariam Wahid, professor of political science and writer, thank you very much for joining us today in Nile TV International.
Ladies and gentlemen, and a short break, and we'll be
Ladies
right back.
and gentlemen, we will now watch a song titled We Are Gathering in Cairo. Let's watch.